One day he went there and he told his fugitive one was to do and said to go on his own.
Call this Shunammite.
When he said to him, she stood before him and she said to him,
Say to her, see, you have taken all this trouble for us. What then is to be done for you? Will you like a word spoken on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army?
And she said,
I dwell among my own people.
and he said to Gehazi,
Then what then is to be done for her?
Gehazi answered, well, she has no son, and her husband is old. And he said,
Call her. At
and when he called her, she stood in the doorway. And he said,
At this season, at this time, next year, you shall embrace a son.
and she said,
No, my lord, O man of God, do not lie to your servant.
but she conceived, and she bore a son about that time the following spring, just as Elisha had said to her. And when the son had grown, he went one day to his father in the field among the reapers. And he said to his father, oh, my head, my head. The father said, carry him to his mother. So they picked him up and carried him to his mother. And the child sat on the mother's lap until noon and then died. The mother picked him up and laid him on the bed of the man of God. Then she said to her husband,
Send me one of the servants and one of the donkeys that I may quickly go to the man of God and come back again.
and her husband answered, why will you go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. And she said,
All is well.
so she saddled the donkey, and she said to her servant,
Watch the animal on. Do not second the place for me unless I tell you.
and she set out for the place of the man of God on Mount Carmel. And when the man of God saw her, he said to Gehazi, his servant,
There's the Shunammite. Go once and say to her, is all well with you? Is all well with your husband? Is all well with the child?
and she said,
All is well.
so she approached the mountain to the man of God, and she grabbed hold of his feet. And Gehazi went to pull her away from Elisha. But Elisha said,
Leave her alone, for she is in bitter distress, and the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me.
and she said,
Did I ask my lord for a son? Did I not say, do not deceive me?
and he said,
Gehazi, tie up your garment and go. And take my staff in your hand. And if you meet anyone, do not greet them. And if anyone greets you, do not reply. And lay my staff on the face of the boy.
so he got up and followed them. Gehazi went on ahead and laid the staff on the face of the child, but there was no sound and no sign of life. So he returned to meet them, and he said to them, the child has not awakened. When Elisha went inside the house, he saw the boy lying on the bed dead. And so he went into the room, closed the door behind him, and prayed to the Lord. Then he got up on the bed and lay on the child with his mouth to his mouth, and his eyes to his eyes, and his hands to his hands. And as he stretched himself out on the boy, the flesh of the child became warm. So he got up and walked once in the house back and forth, and he got back on and stretched himself on the boy. The child sneezed 7 times, and the eyes of the child were open. And he summoned Gehazi and said to him,
Call the Shunammite.
and so he called her, and she came before him, and he said,
Pick up your son.
so she came at his feet, bowing down to the ground, and then she picked up the son and left.